There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another TBR for April. I've got an ambitious TBR, and in fact, let me start again. Here I am with a pile of possibilities for another readathon in April. I have a very ambitious pile of possibilities / TBR for April for the readathon People April, put on by Roz and Elizabeth. And I also am really stoked to be participating in TransGirlReadathon, co-hosted by Kevvie of C'est Kevvie and Willow of BooksandBao. And it is also a month-long readathon on trans and non-binary lit. And I'm really stoked to be participating in both of them. Plus I have, a rather large shelf of current reads ongoing, so I'm gonna, have fun trying to fit everything in. It's gonna be great. So I'll put links to the announcement videos by Kevvie and Willow, and they have prompts and bingo cards and stuff, and please check all that out. It looks fabulous. I'm just basically reading books that were on my shelf, except for 3 from the library, or 1 I may break down and buy if I like it. Let me start with that one, because the books I had were all by white writers, and that's no good. So I have mixed it up a little with some books that are quite new from the library, 2 of them, so I'll start with those 2. The first one, which I don't have a copy of yet, I'm waiting to get it from the library, and it is Màgòdiz by Gabe Calderón. And it looks from the cover, here's the cover, it looks like it should be a manga or something, or a graphic novel, but it's not. Gabe Calderón, I'm going to read their description right off the publisher's website. They are a two-spirit, trans, non-binary, and queer white settler with indigenous ancestry. And this novel sounds fascinating. It doesn't necessarily sound like a Sean book, but I'm curious to try it. They originate from what is now Ottawa, the Omawanini Anishinaabe area, and now they live in Treaty 6 territory, which is the area in what is colonially referred to as the Edmonton, Alberta area. And this is their debut novel. Now, Màgòdiz is an Anishinaabe word that means someone who refuses allegiance to, resists, or rises in arms against the government. And I believe this is maybe a historical fantasy that is... I can't really make head nor tail of the description. I will tell you about it once I get started on it, but it does sound like historical fiction with some blend of kind of Anishinaabe fantasy elements. I'm not sure. It does sound like it will be a challenging read for Sean the Book Maniac, but it's one that I very much want to try. The other one that is not by a white writer is, and this I have the library copy, and it's so glary, I'm just going to now put it down and put up the GIF. When We Were Sisters, a novel by Fatimah Asghar. And Fatimah Asghar is a non-binary writer who lives in America, and this is their debut novel, but they are a accomplished poet. And it is apparently an autobiographical novel about 3 orphan sisters. Their parents die shortly after they immigrate to America, and the youngest sister has a journey with their gender, which is part of the novel. And it is on the long list of the inaugural Carol Shields Prize, which was just announced a week or 2 ago, and that's how it came onto my radar, and it was going to fit in really well with TransGirl April. I think I have these kind of ordered in the ones that I definitely want to get to, those 2 I definitely want to get to, and others in the order in which I think there's a good chance that I'm going to get to them for TransGirl April. I know I'm going to get to this one because this is a buddy read with my dear friend Joe Smith of BookTube commenter fame. Little Blue Encyclopedia for Vivian by Hazel Jane Plante. This is a novel about queer trans grief, and also in an experimental form, which is an encyclopedia of a fictional TV show. In other words, a TV show that doesn't exist in real life that is part of the process of grieving in the novel. I'm not going to try to explain more about it. It is a book that is quite difficult to kind of summarize. Kevvie herself was on my channel on Bite Size Book Chats to talk about it. I'll put a link to that chat in the show notes. And actually, Hazel Jane Plante's second novel is the group read this year for TransGirl April, but because I'm reading their first novel, I can't read two novels by one writer in the same month, it would just be a little disorienting. So I look forward to trying the second novel later on. And Peter of Pensively Reading put this one on my radar, and I promptly got a copy from the library. This is a graphic memoir, and it's called A Pros and Cons List for Strong Feelings by Will Betke-Brunswick. Betke-Brunswick is a trans graphic artist, graphic writer, I never know how to say that, from California. It is about a close-knit family approaching loss. It's a memoir of the author's mother's illness and death. And it sounds like it's going to be really powerful. I'll let you know how it goes. This one is quite new too. Came out in 2022. This is it's not a really chunky book, but this is one of the longer books on my list. But it's also one of the books that I've had the longest, so I would really like to get to it. Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl by Andrea Lawlor, an American writer, and they have written a book here about I guess I'm assuming a gay man who ends up shape-shifting, and so queer trans adventures ensue. It came out a few years ago. I started it and couldn't get into it, but I think I've come a long way since 2017 when it was published, so I'm going to give it another try for Trans Girl April. One of the best books I've read in recent years was by the trans writer Torrey Peters, Detransition Baby, and it certainly is one of the best books I've read about trans women, one of the best works of fiction I've read about trans women, and I have a novella by Torrey Peters, Infect Your Friends and Loved Ones. I'm not crazy about the title or the picture, but it's Torrey Peters, so I'm going to give it a try. I've had it forever. And apparently, somebody famous told me recently that it's kind of hard to get, so I'm glad I have a copy. Mine says limited edition blank of 350. Anyway, I don't need to know what it's about, but the Trans Girl April is the time to finally get to this novella by Torrey Peters. And I also think it's high time that I tried this one, because this one is a big... Well, this one was put on my radar because Torrey Peters recommended it at the time that Detransition Baby came out. And I bought it at that time, and I'm pretty sure that I can take the credit for putting it on Scott and Nell's radar of Gunpowder Fiction and Plot and Book Hunt. And they read it and loved it. But when they told me what it was about, I didn't really want to read it. It's about cuckolding. It's about a man who has cuckolding fantasies, and so he gets people to fuck his wife. But then the plot takes a trans turn from there. Jackie, did I show you? It's called Darryl by Jackie Ess. And so the plot takes a trans turn, and the author is a trans writer, but the cuckolding thing just leaves me cold. So I'm told that I need to just suck it up and give it a try. So here I go. One of the suggestions or prompts for Trans Girl April is to read a nonfiction work. So I do have one, and this one is going to double up for People April and Trans Girl April. Amateur, A Reckoning with Gender, Identity, and Masculinity by Thomas Page McBee, a trans male boxer. Lots of people have read this and liked it. I have done some previewing of it, and I think I'm going to like it too, and what a good time to finally get to it. What's still here on my pile is definitely far down on the pile of possibilities, either because I have kind of misgivings about them or because I think I've my plate. My pile of possibilities runneth over, but I have had these kicking around, and I'm not sure I'll ever get to them. By the trans writer Isabel Waidner. I've got We Are Made of Diamond Stuff and Gaudy Bauble, both published by Dostoevsky Wannabe. The author, they sound intriguing, but they write very experimentally, and when I flip through them, I'm just not sure they're going to be for me. I'll show you one representative page, which just makes me think, I don't think I'm going to get along with this. But I've got them, and I will try them at some point. I mean, I've had them for a few years now. I got to at least try them, right? But it may not be this for this particular readathon. And here's two more that are just longer works of fiction. I really want to get to them, but I don't think I'm going to get to them this month. But, you know, if I have a bunch of bales, it's still possible. One is a collection of short stories by the wonderful trans-Canadian writer Casey Plett, A Dream of a Woman. This is Casey Plett's most recent publication, I believe, 2021, and there may be a more recent one that I'm not aware of. I read Little Fish last year and absolutely loved it, so I think this was a gift from Lindy, and I'd like to get to it maybe this month, if I'm really, really optimistic. And just the other day, I picked up my first book by John Elizabeth Stintzi, My Volcano. And they are a Canadian-born non-binary writer. I don't know where they live. Oh, Kansas. Kansas City, Missouri. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a little scary for me to think of John Elizabeth Stintzi living there, but what do I really know about Kansas City? The headlines from anywhere in North America are a little scary for queer and especially trans and non-binary people. This novel sounds really interesting, although it does seem a little maybe sci-fi. It's a pre-apocalyptic novel that centers around a mass of stone that's growing bigger and bigger in Central Park. Well, I have never tried anything by John Elizabeth Stintzi. I guess the title makes sense now, My Volcano. But there it is, at the bottom of my pile of possibilities. Not because I'm not interested to try it, but because it's pretty chunky and it's been on my shelf for the least amount of time. It could wait until next Trans Girl April. That's my pile of possibilities. What do you think?